I'm Sarah from The Upcoming. A real pleasure to be able to speak to you both today. Maybe you could just kick off with a brief introduction to Bird Box Barcelona. I guess some people will already be familiar with the film from a few years back, might be coming to it fresh. What can they expect from this movie?
Well, this is a parallel story set up in the same universe as the original Bird Box. Instead of following the events of what happened in that movie, we are telling a story that it's happening more or less simultaneously, but on the other side of the world. And hopefully we give like a fresh new perspective to the story, to the Bird Box mythos, and we create a movie that, even if it coexists with the original one, it's its own beast and its own animal, and a fun ride, hopefully.
And, what was it about that original film or perhaps the original text that really caught your imagination? And why did you think it was going to work so well, kind of, I guess, transferring the action into this Spanish context?
Well, I think that there's something very terrifying of the idea that what you can see can kill you. This idea that something as simple as opening your eyes can bring about your death is terrifying, and it brings a level of helplessness and danger that it's, I don't know, I really had a hard time watching the first movie. I found it very stressful for me, which is usually a good sign, because it means that it really spoke to me some level. And that was before we even heard about the possibility of making this movie. I just watched the first movie as any other of the millions of people that watched it on Netflix back in 2018. And I think probably what attracted us about the possibility of making Bird Box Barcelona, I don't think it was so much bringing it to Barcelona as the freedom to tackle the story from a different angle. Like the free reign that they gave us, like, okay, as long as the story takes place in the same universe, as long as you're consistent with the rules, like, knock yourself out. Just tell whatever story excites you and whatever story you find interesting. And, without getting into spoilers, I don't want to say too much about the twists and turns of the movie, but we did find a way of telling a story that it was a Bird Box movie, but it was at the same time very different from the original. And it offered a really fresh perspective that wasn't just another story of, survivors like in the first movie. So I think that was probably what attracted us most to the project.
And in terms of the look and feel of the film, I think, the best kind of horrors and thrillers are those that feel very tangible and feel very lived in. And you've done such a real great hybrid of using kind of special effects, but then also making it feel like we are there and these things are happening. And there's some incredible scenes that you pull off. So I wonder what your approach was in that respect and what some of the highlights and challenges of the shoot might have been.
Well, yes, we wanted to make the movie feel like lived in and the world very grounded and very realistic. That was very important for us. The first one was already a little bit like that, and we wanted to keep with that vibe because that creates another level of anxiety. It doesn't feel as removed from the audience. The challenge with that is that this is a movie that combines practical and digital effects, and in a world where people are very jaded with CGI and they're used to see CGI as a way to create like fantastical worlds, to make them in a way that are invisible to the human eye, that are theoretically not there because they feel like the real world. That's a challenge. That's a level of realism that it's much harder to pull off than just creating another dimension or people in another planet. You have to see Barcelona, and sometimes it is really Barcelona, sometimes it's not, it's a simulation, and you have to be able to fool the audience into believing that it's always real. And that was definitely a challenge.
and tell us about working with this amazing cast. And I love kind of the ensemble that you've put together, you know, whether it's from Georgina to Diego to Mario. So how did you choose your cast and how did you work with them? And I guess there were going to be some quite intense scenes to pull off and stunts, et cetera, et cetera. So, you know, what might have been some of the highlights of that process?
Well, in the case of Mario, we'd worked before with him in our previous movie. He had like a big part, but a supporting role in our previous movie. So we knew we wanted to work with him again for sure. And this time, just give him like the starring role. He's literally in like 99% of the film, which is, you know, an incredibly challenging role, both physically and emotionally. We really put him through the grinder, or the ringer. The ringer. Sorry, yeah, my English not as great as I thought it was. Anyway, and then there's Georgina, of course, which we're big fans of her since we saw her in that episode of Black Mirror, Hang the DJ. You know, it's like one of those things where you watch the episode, you don't know who she is, and you go like, oh, wait, she's great, you know? And you write down her name, like, you know, if we ever need like a British actress, we should definitely get her. And that's what we did, you know, when we made our list of our Claires, she was right there at the top of the list. So we immediately called her. And then there's Diego, who hadn't done a lot, but he'd done Babylon with Damien Chazelle right before he made Bird Box. It hadn't come out yet, but you know, Damien Chazelle was very adamant in recommending him, saying like, you know, he's great, he's fantastic. You know, the lead of our movie is not Brad Pitt, is not Margot Robbie. The lead is Diego, and you should cast him if you can. And he was right, you know, and it was a pleasure to work with the three of them. You know, each of them have like different languages, different acting styles, and it's our job to orchestrate all that and bring it all together. But they really make also your job quite easy, you know, when you're working with people like that.
And in terms of what people can take away from watching the film, I mean, I don't know if it's sort of a sign of our times, you know, the tumultuous period of history that we're living through, you know, not just in Europe and the US, you know, more globally. Is there some kind of catharsis to these post-apocalyptic kind of shows, you know, and kind of... Yeah, is there something freeing in kind of imagining almost the worst sort of things that can happen, but also the uplifting notions of people coming together and surviving against the odds?
Yeah, I think there is something cathartic for sure. We all went through this terrible pandemic and we came out the other side, and I think that seeing it heightened to this level in a fictional way, it's a way of shaking it off in a way. And also I think that during the pandemic, we, despite all the horrible things that happened and all the tragedy, we also saw like extreme gestures of kindness, of solidarity, and that was something that we wanted to see in the movie, you know, how even in the most extreme situations, people manage to find hope and manage to find each other and help each other, and it's not all about survival of the fittest, but that sometimes the best of us also can come out of like the worst of the situations.
And in a film like this, you know, also amazing platforms like Netflix bringing kind of different language content to global audiences. I mean, I guess Money Heist might be an obvious one, which sort of felt like, you know, really showed how the content now can travel, and, you know, people can overlook, you know, the subtitles on the bottom of the screen, and shows like this, another example of that.
Yeah, I mean, this is one of the things that attracted us to the project, you know, this idea of, do you want to be part of this global mosaic of stories? You know, there's a Bird Box in the US, now there's a Bird Box in Spain. Who knows where the next Bird Box is going to be? I would love to see like Bird Box Tokyo or Bird Box Seoul in Korea. That'd be fantastic, you know. And this is a model of storytelling that didn't really exist before the streamers, you know. You don't see like a big Hollywood studio making local language spin-offs of their own, big budget movies. They will maybe make a remake, but not like this sort of global tapestry of storytelling. This is like a new way of telling stories, and we really wanted to be a part of that,
Amazing. Well, I think I'm out of time, but thank you so much for sharing all that with me, and I can't wait for everyone else to see Bird Box Barcelona. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
you.